The docking bay of Ryler Station was always busy, ships arriving and leaving every hour, merchants shouting prices, guards checking papers, and workers rushing with heavy crates. Yet in that noise and light, 3 figures stood alone, silent and unwanted. They were widows, alien women from a world torn apart by war. Their clothes were plain, patched many times. Their faces showed both strength and sorrow. Each of them had lost a husband in the war, and with that loss, they had lost respect in their society too. Employers walked past them, their eyes turned away. Some whispered cruel words. Widows bring bad luck. No captain wants cursed hands on his ship. They should go back to their dying world. Each insult cut deep, but they had grown used to it. Hunger had made them strong. Pain had made them silent. The first widow, Lyra, held her small child's toy in her hand, even though her child was gone. She never spoke much, but her eyes told of storms inside. The second widow, Shara, stood tall, once proud, now weary. She still remembered the songs her husband used to sing before battle. The third, Nira, was youngest. She still looked for hope in the crowd, but every day hope became harder to find. They waited from morning until the lights of the station turned dim. Every time a captain walked by, they asked in soft voices, "Please, we just need a job." But the answer was always the same: no, or laughter, or silence. One merchant even threw a coin at their feet. "Take this, beggars," he said. Nira picked it up slowly. Her hands trembling, Shara whispered, "We are not beggars, we only want to work." But the crowd had already moved on. The widows sat together on the cold metal floor. Ships above them roared into the sky, taking crews. To adventure and fortune for the widows there was nothing but waiting and rejection. "Why do they hate us?" Nira whispered. Her voice was almost gone from so much silence. "Because we remind them of death," Shara answered. "And no one wants death on their ship." Lyra stayed quiet. She looked at the stars beyond the glass dome of the bay. Her eyes burned, but no tears came. She had no tears left. Time passed slowly. The sound of footsteps, the calls of traders, the smell of fuel and smoke, it all became a blur. The widows felt invisible, like shadows no one wanted to notice. Then something changed. A new sound entered the bay. Heavy boots, slow but sure. A figure stopped near them. The crowd did not notice, but the widows felt his eyes. It was a human. Humans were rare here, known for strange courage and stranger kindness. This one wore a dark jacket, a travel bag over his shoulder. His face was not cruel, not mocking. He looked at them as if he truly saw them. "Are you looking for work?" the human asked. His voice was calm, not sharp like the others. The widows stared in silence. They did not trust it. A question like that usually ended in more pain. "Yes," Shara said at last, her voice rough. "We need work. We are willing to do anything." The human tilted his head, studying them. "Anything?" he asked. "Yes," Nira answered quickly. "Cleaning, fixing, carrying. We can work hard. We only need a chance." Around them, a few people laughed. "Look at that human," someone whispered. "Even he will learn. Widows bring nothing but trouble." But the human did not laugh. He crouched so he was at their eye level. His eyes were steady. "My name is John," he said. "Captain John Mercer. I have a small ship, and I need hands. If you truly want work, I will give you a chance." The widows froze. It sounded too much like a dream. Shara narrowed her eyes. "Why?" she asked. "Why would a human hire us when no one else will?" John's mouth curved into something between a smile and a frown. "Because I don't believe in curses," he said. "I believe in people, and sometimes the ones left behind are the strongest." For the first time in many months, Lyra's lips moved. Her voice was soft, almost broken. "You would take us, even with our past?" "Yes," John said simply. "But it will not be easy. Work on a ship never is. If you accept, you are part of the crew. If you refuse, then I will walk away, and you will never see me again." The widows looked at one another. 3 broken lives, 3 hearts full of loss. Could they risk trust again? Could they walk into the unknown with a human stranger? Their stomachs ached with hunger. Their souls ached with emptiness. In the silence, each of them felt the weight of choice. Shara finally spoke. "We will come," she said firmly. Lyra nodded. Nira's eyes shone with a spark of hope. John stood. He reached out a hand. Shara took it, her grip shaking but strong. He pulled her to her feet, then the others. "Then let us go," he said. "Your waiting ends today." The widows rose, their shadows long against the light of the bay. Behind them, the crowd still moved, still mocked, still ignored. But ahead of them waited something no widow had been given before. A chance. And in that moment, they did not know if it was salvation or doom. But for the first time in a long time, they felt alive. The air inside the docking tunnel was colder than the widows expected. Their bare hands touched the rail as they followed. John Mercer. His steps were heavy but calm. Each sound echoed against the metal walls. Shara walked in front, her eyes sharp. Lyra stayed behind with slow steps, her fingers tight around her old child's toy. Nira followed closest to John. Curiosity shining in her young eyes, the human moved with confidence as if the whole station belonged to him. The widows felt strange. For months they had been invisible. Now someone had not only spoken to them but asked them to follow. It felt like a trap, a dream, or both. Finally, the tunnel opened, and they entered a docking bay much smaller than the crowded market outside. In the middle stood a ship, dark gray, not large, not shining like the wealthy merchant vessels. Yet it looked alive. It was old but cared for, its hull patched, its engines glowing faint blue. "This is mine," John said. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight, the horizon's edge. The widows exchanged a look. To them, the ship looked more like a tired warrior than a proud vessel. Still, it stood ready, waiting for flight. "You want us to work?" "Here?" Shara asked, suspicion clear in her tone. "Yes," John answered. "She needs hands, and I cannot pay much, but you will have food, a bed, and a place. If you prove yourselves, you may stay." Nira almost smiled at the word, bed. To sleep without fear, without cold metal floors, felt like a gift. Lyra said nothing, only watching, waiting, measuring the man with her silent eyes. They followed John up the ramp. The door closed behind them with a hiss. Inside, the ship was narrow but warm, faint lights glowing along the walls. Machines hummed like a heartbeat. The smell of oil and iron filled the air. John showed them a small room with 3 bunks. "It's not much," he said, "but it is yours. You'll share. I hope you don't mind." The widows stepped inside. Their hands touched the thin blankets, the metal beds. To anyone else it was nothing. To them, it was everything. A place that was theirs, not borrowed, not stolen. Nira whispered, "It feels safe," and for the first time in months her lips curved upward. John leaned against the wall watching. "I don't need slaves," he said. "I don't need beggars. I need crew. If you agree, you'll work as crew. No one is above. No one is below. All pull their weight." Shara narrowed her eyes. "And if we fail, then you leave." John answered simply, "No chains, no threats. You go free." His honesty unsettled them. They had met liars, cheats, and mockers. But a man who spoke plainly was a stranger in this galaxy. The widows sat together on the bunk, whispering in their alien tongue. Lyra's voice was low. "It could be danger," Nira argued. "It could be hope." Shara sighed. "Hope has teeth. It bites when you least expect it." John left them alone for a while, walking to the control room. The hum of the engines filled the silence. At last, Shara rose. "We have no choice," she said. "Better to work and fail than to starve on the floor of the station." When John returned, the answer was ready. Shara spoke for them. "We accept. We will work." John gave a short nod. "Good. Then eat first. Tomorrow, The real work begins. Guided them to the mess room, a table with 4 chairs, a simple machine that produced hot meals. The widows sat uncertain. The smell of cooked food reached their noses. It was the first true meal they had seen in weeks. They ate slowly, their hands shaking as if afraid the food would vanish. John did not stare. He ate with them, speaking little. The silence was not cruel. It was calm. As they finished, alarm suddenly blinked on the wall. Red light flashed. John stood quickly. "Stay here," he ordered. He rushed to the control room. The widows followed despite his words. On the screen, another ship was visible, approaching. Its symbol marked it as a rival merchant guild. They could hear voices through the comms, cruel laughter. "John Mercer," the voice mocked. "We hear you hired widows. Are you so desperate? You'll curse your ship with their shadows." The words burned. Shara's fists clenched. Nira's eyes filled with anger. Lyra's face turned pale. John answered calmly. "Better widows with courage than cowards with full pockets." He cut the comms, his eyes steady. "Ignore them, words mean nothing in the void." The widows looked at him differently now. He had not defended himself. He had defended them. For once, someone had stood against the laughter. Night cycle came. The ship's lights dimmed. In their small room, the widows lay awake. "Why him?" Nira whispered. "Why does he not fear us?" "Because he is human," Shara answered softly. "And humans are strange. They do what others dare not." Lyra closed her eyes, her hand still gripping the old toy. "Or maybe he is a fool, and fools die first." But deep inside, even Lyra felt a spark she thought was lost, a spark of belonging. As the horizon's edge prepared for flight, no one knew the path ahead, but one truth had already changed. The widows were no longer invisible. They were crew, and that meant they were something more than shadows. The horizon's edge lifted from Ryler Station with a deep rumble. The engines glowed bright, and the small ship pushed into the endless dark of space. For the first time in many months, the widows were leaving the station, leaving the cold floors and cruel laughter behind. Nira pressed her face close to the window. Her eyes widened at the stars, endless and burning. "It feels like freedom," she whispered. Shara stood with her arms crossed, refusing to show wonder. Lyra sat quiet in the corner, her hand gripping the small toy tighter. John Mercer sat at the controls, calm and steady. His hands moved with skill, guiding the ship through the void. He glanced at them once. "Space doesn't care who you are," he said. "It only cares if you can survive it." The words stayed with them. For so long, people had judged them by their past, their curse. But here, in the silence of the void, only survival mattered. The first hours were spent learning. John gave them small tasks. Shara carried supplies from storage. Nira cleaned the tools and checked wires. Lyra sat with an old data screen, repairing its broken code. John watched with interest. "You know machines?" he asked Lyra. "My husband was an engineer," she replied softly. "He taught me before he was taken by the war." Her voice was sharp, like glass breaking, but John only nodded. "Good. This ship always needs hands that understand its heart." As the day passed, the widows worked. For the first time, they felt useful again, not just shadows begging in the market, but outside the void was never quiet. Ships passed, signals echoed, and whispers of danger moved through the comms. At dinner, John warned them. "The galaxy is not safe. Pirates hunt these routes, merchants cheat, and war still spreads. If you stay with me, you must be ready." Shara leaned forward, her eyes narrow. "Why risk us then?" she asked. "Why take widows that everyone hates?" John's answer was simple. "Because I need people who have already survived the worst. People who lost everything but still stand. That is strength no one can teach." The widows did not reply, but the fire in his words reached deep into them. Later that night, as the lights dimmed, Nira whispered in their small room, "Do you think we can really be crew?" Shara sighed. "If we fail, he throws us out. Better to fight for place than wait to die." Lyra stayed silent, staring at the ceiling, but in her chest, she felt something small and sharp, hope trying to wake. The next morning, John woke them, early. "We have a delivery job," he said. "Simple trade, but the route is dangerous." The widows followed him to the cargo bay, heavy crates stacked inside, sealed with merchant codes. "What's in them?" Nira asked. "Not our concern," John said. "Our job is to deliver, that's all." The ship cut through space, stars streaking like silver lines. For hours, the journey was quiet. Then alarms blinked red. John's eyes narrowed. Contact. Ahead. On the screen, a small vessel drifted, lights flickering. A signal came through, weak and broken. "Help. Please." "Engines failing." Nira gasped. "We must help them." Shara frowned. "It could be a trap." John stayed calm. "Both may be true." He looked at them. "Crew makes choices together. Do we risk it?" The widows froze. Never before had anyone asked their choice. Shara spoke first. "If we do nothing and they die, their blood is on us." Nira nodded quickly. "We must help," Lyra whispered. "And if it is pirates? Then we fight," John said simply. The horizon's edge moved closer. The damaged vessel spun slowly, its lights blinking. As they approached, the comms crackled again, but this time, laughter filled the speakers, cruel and sharp. "Fools," the voice mocked. "You should have left us to die." From the shadows, 3 pirate ships uncloaked, weapons glowing. The trap had been sprung. Nira's eyes widened in fear. "What do we do?" John's voice was calm, steady like stone. "We fight or we die." He turned to them. "Crew stands together." The widows looked at one another. Their hearts pounded. Fear gripped them, but so did fire. For the first time, someone had trusted them in battle, not as burdens but as equals. Shara ran to the weapons console, her hands clumsy but strong. Nira strapped in, ready to reload power cells. Lyra bent over the systems, her quick fingers fixing shields. The pirates fired. The horizon's edge shook. Alarms screamed. Sparks burst across the walls, but John's voice never wavered. "Hold steady. Fire on." "My mark!" Shara pressed the trigger. The ship's cannons roared. Energy bolts cut across the black. One pirate ship spun out, burning. Nira shouted in shock. "We hit them!" Lyra shouted from her console. "Shields at 50%. "Keep them alive," John ordered. One more volley. The second pirate ship closed in, but Lyra rerouted power. The shield held. Shara fired again. The explosion lit the void. Only one pirate ship remained, its captain snarled over the comms. "You think a human and 3 widows can defeat us?" "You are already dead." John smiled coldly. "Widows have already met death and they are still here." With a final command, the cannons fired. The last pirate ship broke apart, flames vanishing into the stars. Silence filled the ship. The widows breathed hard, their hands shaking, their eyes wide with shock. They had fought, and they had survived. John turned to them, his face calm but proud. "You see," he said. "Crew fights, crew wins. No curses here, only strength." The widows stared at him. For the first time in years, they felt more than sorrow. They felt alive, but deep in the void, whispers would spread. A human who hired widows and widows who fought like warriors. Enemies would not forget. Danger was coming, and the true journey had only just begun. The horizon's edge drifted in silence after the battle. The smoke of burning circuits filled the air. Sparks still flickered along the walls. The widows sat in shock, their hearts still racing. They had survived, but survival never came without a cost. John Mercer walked across the deck, his boots steady even as alarms blinked. "Good work," he said, his voice calm. "You stood, you fought, you did not run." His eyes moved across each widow, and for the first time they felt like more than shadows. But the galaxy never allowed peace for long. The distress beacon of the destroyed pirate ship had already gone out. That signal would spread, and others would come, not to help, but to hunt. In the small mess room, the widows sat together, their food untouched. Nira trembled. "I thought we would die," she whispered. Shara placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We lived." That means we are stronger now. Lyra stayed silent, but her eyes carried a storm. John entered, carrying a data pad. The pirates belonged to the Red Fang clan, he said. They don't forget. They will come for us. Then why fight them? Lyra asked sharply. Why not run and hide? Because running only delays death, John answered, and hiding makes you weak. The only way forward is to stand. The widows shared a long look. His words sounded like madness, but also like truth. The next stop was a trading station called Corin Outpost. Its markets were crowded, its halls loud with laughter and lies. John needed parts to repair the ship and credits to keep them moving. The widows followed him, staying close, their heads bowed. As they walked through the crowd, whispers rose. Widows, one voice hissed. Curse on that ship. Another voice laughed. The human is a fool hiring the doomed. Shara clenched her fists, but John's steady pace never slowed. At a supply stall, John bartered with a merchant. The man looked at the widows with disgust. Throw them out, Captain, and I'll give you a fair price. John's eyes turned cold. Then I'll take my business elsewhere, he said, and walked away. The merchant cursed behind them, but the widows felt a strange warmth. Someone had chosen them over profit. That was new. Later, in the shadowed alleys of the outpost, danger waited. A group of men stepped from the dark, weapons glinting. Captain Mercer, one sneered. The Red Fang sends greetings. You stole lives from them. Now you pay. John moved forward slowly, his hand resting on the weapon at his side. And what if I refuse? Then you and your cursed crew die here, the man spat. The widows froze. Nira clutched Shara's arm. Lyra's eyes narrowed like blades. John's voice was quiet, almost calm. Then let's see if your courage matches your tongue. Before the fight began, a shout came from behind. Stop! A woman in armor approached, carrying the Red Fang mark on her chest. Her eyes were sharp, her smile thin. Captain Mercer, your little victory has caused noise. The Fang does not forgive, but maybe we can make a deal. John's gaze hardened. What deal? The woman pointed at the widows. Leave them. Leave the cursed ones with us, and the Fang will forget you. Walk free, Captain. Save yourself. The widows froze, betrayal heavy in the air. Would the human abandon them now? After all, they were. Only widows cursed and hated easily replaced. Nira's voice cracked. Captain, please. Shara's jaw tightened, preparing for the worst. Lyra gripped her toy so hard her knuckles bled. John's reply was simple, his voice cut like steel. I don't trade lives. Not theirs, not mine. He stepped closer. Tell your Fang masters. If they want me, they will have to come and bleed for it. The woman's smile faded. So be it, she said, and her soldiers raised their weapons. Blaster fire filled the alley. The widows ducked, but John stood firm, returning fire with deadly aim. His movements were sharp, practiced. Shara grabbed a fallen weapon, firing clumsily but fierce. Nira pulled at energy packs, feeding power to John's blaster. Lyra hacked into the alley's power grid, plunging the place into darkness. Sparks lit the shadows as enemies stumbled. Be up, quiet. Battle ended quickly. The Fang soldiers fled, dragging their wounded with them. The woman in armor shouted, This is not over, human. The Fang will hunt you to the edge of the stars, and vanished into the crowd. Silence fell. John lowered his weapon. The widows stared at him. Nira whispered, You could have left us. John looked at her, his face unreadable. Crew stands together, he said. If I leave you, I betray myself. Back on the horizon's edge, the widows sat in their bunk, hearts heavy. They had been tested again, and again the human had stood with them. For the first time, Shara whispered, Maybe he is not a fool. Nira smiled faintly. Maybe he is the only one who sees us. Lyra stayed quiet, but her grip on the toy loosened. For the first time, her fingers relaxed, yet shadows moved in the void. The Red Fang clan would not stop, and somewhere in their ranks, someone knew the truth. The husbands of these widows had not died by accident. Their deaths had been chosen, planned, and paid for, and now, by following John Mercer, The widows were walking closer to that truth, a truth that could save them or destroy them all. So, Horizon's Edge drifted through the black sea of stars. Inside the ship, silence hung heavy. The widows sat together in their small bunk, their faces pale, their hearts restless. Shara broke the silence first. "The Red Fang knows us," she whispered. "They knew we were widows. They hunted us because of it." Nira hugged her knees. "But why? We are no one. We have nothing." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "No, we had husbands once. Men who fought in the war. Men who saw things others wanted buried." The words made the room colder. Their loss had always felt random, cruel. But now, suspicion burned like fire. In the control room, John Mercer studied the star maps. His jaw was tight, his eyes sharp. He had heard the Red Fang woman's words too. Something was not right. Widows were hated, yes, but hunted. That was different. That was planned. When the widows entered, John turned to face them. "Tell me," he said. "What really happened to your husbands?" The widows froze. Lyra's voice shook. "They died in the war." "Everyone dies in war," John replied. "But you don't fear death, you fear truth. Tell me the truth." Shara's fists clenched. "Why should we trust you with it?" "Because secrets kill faster than bullets," John said firmly. "And if the Fang is chasing you, then your past is no longer past. It is present, and it is hunting all of us." The widows looked at one another. At last, Lyra spoke. Her voice low. "Our husbands did not fall in battle. They were murdered, killed by their own commanders." John's eyes darkened. "Why?" "To hide something," Lyra answered. "They discovered a deal. A secret trade between the warlords and the Red Fang, weapons, codes, routes. The commanders sold them. The husbands found out, and they paid with their lives." Shara's voice cracked. "We were told it was honor, but it was betrayal. And after their deaths we were cast out, cursed so no one would believe us." Nira's eyes glistened. "We stayed silent because we had no proof, only pain. But the Fang hunts us, because they fear we still carry what our husbands knew." The truth settled over the room like a shadow. John leaned back slowly, his face unreadable. "So the curse is not a curse," he said. "It is a lie to bury the truth." The widows felt exposed. Their deepest wound laid bare. But John did not look at them with pity. He looked at them with fire. "Then we make them fear," he said. "If the Fang and the warlords killed your husbands to bury the secret, then we dig it up, we show it, we burn them with their own lies." Shara shook her head. "You don't understand, Captain. We are already dead to the galaxy. No one will believe widows." John's voice was steel. "Then they will believe me. Humans are stubborn creatures. We push until the walls break." The widows stared at him. His words carried danger, but also hope, the kind of hope they had forgotten long ago. That night the ship was quiet, but no one slept. Lyra sat awake, her hand around the old toy, remembering her husband's smile. Shara hummed the old battle song softly under her breath. Nira stared at the stars, whispering to herself, "Maybe this time we will not be forgotten." The next day, John gathered them. "We can't fight shadows," he said. "We need proof. Where did your husband serve last? Where were they killed?" Shara swallowed. "On Veros Prime, a frozen world. The war left it empty. Only ruins remain." John nodded. "Then we go there." The widows stiffened. Fear and pain filled their eyes. That world was their grave, the last place they wanted to see. But John's voice was firm. "If we want truth, we must walk into the dark." The Horizon's Edge cut through space, its engines steady. As the widows watched the stars pass, memories burned inside them. When Veros Prime came into view, their breath caught. The planet was white and dead, snowstorms wrapping it like a shroud. Scars of old battles stretched across the land, broken towers and burned trenches, a graveyard of war. The ship landed in silence. The widows stepped onto the frozen ground. The cold bit their skin, but the pain inside was sharper. This was where he fell, Lyra whispered, her voice breaking. Where they all fell. Shara closed her eyes, hearing the ghosts of battle in the howling wind. Nira shivered, clutching her arms. I can still feel them here. John moved ahead, scanning the ruins with a device. We look for records, transmissions, anything that survived, he said. Hours passed. The ruins gave nothing but silence. Then Lyra's voice called out. Here. She had found a half-buried terminal under the snow. Its power flickered weakly, but John's skilled hands coaxed it back to life. The screen lit with broken text and static, but within it, fragments of orders appeared. Names, codes, shipments, and one line that froze them all. Authorization. Red Fang. Agreement confirmed. The widows gasped. Shara whispered. It's true. Nira trembled. They killed them for this. Lyra closed her eyes, pain and fury mixing. John's jaw tightened. Now we have proof, he said. Now we can fight with truth, not just with guns. But before they could celebrate, the terminal screamed with warning. A signal had gone. Out, someone was watching. Someone knew. Engines roared above. Ships descended through the storm. Red Fang colors blazing. They had been found. The widow's eyes widened. Fear filled their hearts, but so did fire. The truth was finally in their hands, and the enemy was coming to rip it away. John's voice cut through the storm. Crew, stand ready. Our past has become our present, and now we fight for the future. Snowstorms howled across Veros Prime. As the horizon's edge sat half-buried in ice, the ruined terminal still glowed faintly, carrying the proof of betrayal. But the sound of engines above warned that the Red Fang had already come. Inside the ship, the widows stood together, their faces pale, their hands trembling. John Mercer checked his weapons with steady movements. His voice was calm but sharp. We cannot outrun them in this storm. We must decide now. The widows exchanged fearful looks. Shara spoke first. If we fight, we may all die. If we run, we lose the truth. Lyra's eyes burned. Our husbands already died because we stayed silent. I will not stay silent again. Nira's voice shook. But if we die now, no one will ever hear the truth. John looked at them, his eyes hard. This is your choice, not mine. You lived this pain. You carried this curse. Tell me, widows, do we hide or do we fight? Silence filled the ship. Outside, the storm roared like a beast. Inside, hearts pounded. Each widow carried her own answer. Shara closed her eyes, remembering the songs her husband once sang. He always told me, she whispered, that truth must be sung. Even if no one listens, I choose to fight. Lyra gripped the small toy in her hand. My child will never return. My husband will never return. But if their deaths are forgotten, then I die with them. I choose to fight. Nira shook with fear, her young face wet with tears. I don't want to die, she cried. But I don't want to be nothing anymore. I choose to fight too. Their voices broke the silence. John gave a slow nod. Then the choice is made. Crew stands together. He guided them to stations. Shara to the weapons, Nira to the power cells, Lyra to the systems. Hold steady, John said. The Fang thinks you are weak. Show them what widows can do. The storm outside split open as Red Fang ships descended. Fire cut through the snow. Blasters lit the dark sky. The horizon's edge shook as the first volley struck. Shara gritted, her teeth, her hands gripping the cannon controls. Ready, she growled. Fire, John commanded. Energy bolts ripped across the sky, striking one of the Fang's smaller ships. It spun out of control, flames trailing into the snow. Nira shouted, shields down to 60%. Her hands scrambled to feed new power. Sparks lit her face, fear mixing with determination. Lyra hacked into the systems, her fingers fast. I can disrupt their targeting, she said. Give me time. You have it, John answered, his voice firm. Hold the line. The Fang returned fire. The ship groaned. Alarms screamed. The widows moved with desperation. For the first time, they did not feel cursed. They felt like warriors. Then, through the storm, a voice broke across the comms. cold and sharp. Widows, you should have stayed forgotten. It was the woman, in armor, her eyes fierce on the screen. Give us the proof. Give us your human, and we will let you live. The widows froze. Nira's breath caught. Shara's eyes burned with fury. Lyra whispered, "She offers what they always offered, life without honor." John's gaze stayed locked on the screen. "They made you widows with lies," he said. "Now they want to make you cowards with mercy. What is your answer?" Shara's hand slammed the weapon controls. "Our answer is fire," she shouted. The horizon's edge roared again, blasting through the storm. The Fang ships swarmed, but Lyra's code spread like poison through their systems. Targeting screens blinked out. Engines faltered. John maneuvered with skill, striking where it hurt most. Still, the Fang pressed harder. More ships descended. The battle raged in fire and snow. The widow's strength burned bright, but the storm of enemies grew heavier. Last, John shouted, "We cannot hold forever. The proof must live even if we do not." He looked at them. "I can launch the data in a beacon. It will reach the outer colonies, but if we do this, the Fang will follow us until the end." The widows stared at him. The choice returned, not just fight or run, but sacrifice or survive. Shara spoke first. "Let the galaxy know. Even if we die, our husbands' voices will not be lost." Lyra nodded, her voice like steel. "They tried to silence us with shame, but we will answer with truth." Nira wiped her tears, her young face now fierce. "Send it, Captain. Let them all see what the Fang did." John's fingers moved across the controls. The beacon activated. The proof of betrayal shot into the sky. A burst of light carrying truth through the storm. On the comms, the Fang woman screamed, "No!" Her ship surged with fury. Weapons cut through the storm like knives. The horizon's edge shook, flames bursting inside. John shouted, "Brace for impact." The widows held their stations, their fear burning into courage. The ship roared as fire filled the sky. The choice had been made. They had chosen truth. They had chosen to stand. Even if death came, they were no longer cursed. They were warriors. And as the horizon's edge burned against the storm, the widows knew one thing. There was no turning back. The horizon's edge burned as it tore through. The storm of Veyros Prime. Smoke filled the narrow halls. Alarms screamed and sparks burst from the walls. The widows held their stations with trembling hands, refusing to let go. Outside, Red Fang ships circled like wolves, their weapons glowing through the snow. John Mercer stood at the helm, his face streaked with soot, his eyes unshaken. "We hold," he said, his voice steady as stone. "Crew does not break." Shara gritted her teeth at the weapons console. Firing blast after blast, her eyes blazed with fury. "Come closer," she whispered, "and we will burn you too." Lyra's fingers flew across the system controls, rerouting failing power. "Engines at 40%, she shouted. "Shields, almost gone." Nira carried power cells with shaking arms, her young face smeared with smoke. "We can still fight," she cried, her voice breaking but fierce. The Fang ships pressed closer, and across the comms, the armored woman's cold voice returned. "Surrender, widows. Give us the proof. Give us the human. And your suffering ends." John's laugh was low and sharp. "You made a mistake," he answered. "You gave them nothing but death. Now they have nothing left to lose." The widows stood taller at his words. They had been cursed, mocked, and forgotten, but now, in fire and storm, they were more than widows. They were a crew. They were warriors. The Fang unleashed another volley. The ship shook. Metal screamed. Shara's cannon fired back. Striking one enemy vessel, flames lit the sky. Another pirate voice shouted in rage, "Kill them! Kill them all!" Inside the horizon's edge, heat grew unbearable. Lyra shouted, "The core is unstable. If it breaches, we all die." John's voice was steel. "Then we aim the fire where it hurts most." He turned to them. "One last strike, one chance to end this." The widows looked at one another, fear heavy in their eyes, but their voices carried no doubt. "Then we strike," Shara said. "For our husbands," Lyra whispered. "For ourselves," Nira added. John set the course, his hands steady even as flames licked the walls. "We take their command ship," he said. "Cut off the head, and the Fang will scatter." The Horizon's Edge roared forward. Its engines screamed against the storm. The Widows held tight. The Fang ships opened fire, but John weaved through the blasts, guiding the burning vessel like a blade. Shara fired with everything left, tearing through another enemy ship. Nira poured the last power into the shields, her voice trembling. "That's all we have." "Then it will be enough," John said. The command ship loomed ahead, black and massive, its guns glowing like fire. The armored woman's face filled the screen again, her eyes cold. "You cannot win, you are already ashes." John smiled. "Not today." The Horizon's Edge plunged through the storm of fire. The Widows cried out as the ship shook, but they did not break. Lyra's hands flew, forcing every scrap of energy into the core. "Now!" she shouted. John's voice roared. "Crew, fire!" Shara slammed the controls. The cannons blazed with one final scream of power. The blast ripped through the command ship's hull, tearing steel apart. Explosions lit the storm like a sun. The Red Fang fleet faltered, their leader broken. The Horizon's Edge was thrown back by the force. Alarms screamed. Fire filled the halls. The ship was dying, but the Fang was in chaos. Ships scattered. Voices shouted in panic. The curse of the Widows had become their fury, and the galaxy would never forget. Inside the broken vessel, the Widows clung to one another. Nira sobbed. "We did it!" Shara laughed through blood. "We truly did it!" Lyra's face was pale, but her eyes burned with fire. "Our husbands are not silent anymore." John staggered to his feet, smoke curling around him. His voice was low but strong. "You were never cursed. You were never weak. You were only waiting for someone to see you." He looked at them with a rare smile. "And now the galaxy sees." The beacon carrying their proof was already far beyond the storm, spreading across colonies, across worlds, spreading the truth of the Red Fang and the betrayal of the warlords. The lie was broken. The Horizon's Edge fell quiet, its lights flickering. But inside its battered hull something greater lived. 3 widows who had been shadows were now flames, and one human who chose to stand with them had turned loss into victory. As the storm cleared, the stars returned, endless and bright. The widows stood side by side, their hands steady. For the first time they felt not cursed, not forgotten, but free. John's voice broke the silence one last time. "Crew," he said, his eyes on the stars. "Our journey is not over, but today we showed them all humanity does not walk alone, and neither do widows." The Horizon's Edge limped into the dark, but the fire in its crew was unbroken. Together they had faced betrayal, pirates, and death itself. And together they had won, no longer widows of shame, no longer outcasts of sorrow. They were warriors of truth. They were the flame of memory. They were family, and the galaxy would remember them forever.